In this video, we're going to look at how Paul George set the tone early with his aggressiveness in Game 3's win. It's Game 3, Clippers are down 2-0. They need to get a win or else, no team's ever come back from down 3-0. They need someone to step up. The Stars have kind of not been good in the series so far. And who steps up? But Paul George, who has a tremendous first half for them. Even poor offensive possessions, at least process-wise, can lead to great results. Utah does a great job here early as the Clippers run double drag. This is the double drag action, two high screeners. Jackson's going to drag off. Gobert's up high to meet this, to discourage Jackson. It's a great adjustment by Utah to not allow the Clippers to just dribble off of picks and chuck up threes. Leonard's then going to set a screen against Mitchell, which is going to force a switch with Jackson onto O'Neal, and Leonard is now going to post in the mid-post against Mitchell. Jackson wants to get the ball to Leonard, and as we see, this is where Leonard wants to do work, but Gobert's already come in over as a shading help defender. So Jackson's going to read this, knows it's late, he's going to skip pass across to Marcus Morris in the corner, who on the catch will read that Bogdanovic is stunting so he can kick to George. George catches, attacks the Bogdanovic closeout, and because Gobert had to track out to Morris, the lane is wide open, and PG gets a dunk. It took until Game 3, but it looks like Paul George, and even to a lesser extent Kawhi Leonard, realizes they're bigger than Royce O'Neal. Paul George is going to go into a step back to see what O'Neal does, and now he's going to cross over O'Neal, who gets caught leaning the wrong way as George gets to the nail. George bumps into Neal, and he's going to go into a step back. And as he goes into the step back, look at the space he's going to generate with his length. He gets off a nice, easy shot. O'Neal is not big enough to contest, and it's a bucket. This is how the Clippers can take advantage of Gobert sagging into the paint. This is called double away. Two away screens, one being set by Leonard here against Ingles, and the second one, as we're about to see, is set by Zoo against O'Neal. Because of where Gobert is, entrenched in the paint, George has a nice release from three. This is uncontested. It's a shot he needs to hit at a high level in this series. Aggressiveness can come in many forms. It can come in the form sometimes of a guy just taking a lot more shots. It can come in the form of a guy who's being more aggressive as a passer, taking advantage of what the defense is giving him. And we see that on this play. This is really ingenious stuff. Gobert's going to rotate over to protect against a drive, and George Niang is pointing at Zoo for someone to take him. Beverly reads this, and he's going to cut through. This is only done because Utah's not paying attention to him. As Beverly sneaks out to the corner, there's no one here. This is Gobert's responsibility. George hits him. Gobert has to close out. Beverly attacks this closeout. Zoo has a nice seal screen inside, and look at this layup by Patrick Beverly for the Clippers. This might be the singular best play Paul George had in the entire series, and it shows a clear change from where he was in aggressiveness in the first two games. Kennard's going to set a screen for George. This is a pin down for George to come off of to potentially shoot. But Utah does a good job of collapsing, so George kicks it to man, and George is going to come back to get the ball. Well, Ingles is going to make a critical mistake here. He gets caught too high. And when he gets caught too high, George is able to get around him. But watch what PG does. Boom. Puts Joe Ingles right in jail. This is a fantastic move to allow Zoo to get in position to seal screen Gobert and allow George to finish at the rim. I kind of like the George-Zoo combination, especially if Gobert's in the game for stuff like this. Screen by Zoo to free up George. But the Utah defender Mieoni does a good job of getting back, so Zoo is going to rescreen the other side. But look where Gobert is. He wants to play drop coverage. He's comfortable. George comes off the really nice screen. He's completely open. He bangs home this three. This stuff is needed. This is why pushing the pace is a necessity against a team like Utah, to get them into a state of flux and not knowing what to do. We already see Derek Favors shading over to help against a potential drive. This is also why you need to drive to the rim to draw bigs over to help. As George drives, we notice man cuts along the baseline, which forces Ingles to take him. And now, because Ingles has to do that, Jackson is open on the wing. George reads this and hits Jackson. Jackson also knows that Bogdanovic only wants to stunt to make him think about not shooting. Jackson goes up into a shot. He's been a capable three-point shooter all season and makes it. Ty Lue's talked about time and time again, small pick and rolls, and we see a variation of that on this play. Leonard's going to come up to set what is called a ghost screen. There's no screen being made here. If Utah overplays it, George can kick to Leonard. Instead, he drives right into a Terrence Mann screen. And Favors is in drop coverage. It's a high drop, but it's still drop. George is going to recognize this, pull up in the mid-range. He buries this, and these are the shots he has to take. This was the shot where you realize Paul George knew he had it going on, and by the time we freeze it here, he already knows he's shooting. He's going up into a shot. He's already made up his mind. He's crossing over Royce O'Neal here. As he goes into his gather, he's not generating space. O'Neal's doing a great job defensively. This is a fantastic contest by O'Neal, but George makes it, and his height advantage here is big. Whew, buddy. You have to love a heat check from about 35 feet, and that's what this play was. Jackson setting a screen to try to free up Leonard, but Utah does a good job of kind of just digging around this and not allowing anything to happen. But it does leave Gobert pointed to Batum, which means O'Neal has to take him, which is going to free up George near the Staples Center logo because Mitchell's all the way down here. George is free to fire. This is a deep three. This is a ridiculously deep three, and Paul George is unconscious. This is where being aggressive as a passer and a decision maker is of the utmost importance. It's the final play. As George is pushing the tempo, we're going to notice something as we pause this. Look where Gobert is. He's trailing the play. So George is going to attack aggressively off the dribble, which is going to pull Gobert further into the paint and allow Batum to cut him behind the defense as a slot cutter. George finds him. Batum's cutting. He makes the dunk. This was awesome stuff by Paul George all game.